Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today we do a deep dive with the COO of Trust Machines, who went from working on oil rigs to mining Bitcoin in the Gulf of Mexico. Learn how she's pioneered Bitcoin-based products from Leather Wallet to Bitcoin L2s, and hear about her journey from Binance USA to leading the charge and bringing real-world utility to Bitcoin. Get ready for an episode filled with insights on Bitcoin's future, innovative DeFi solutions, and the challenges of building on Bitcoin. Remember, nothing stated here is financial advice. Podcast. We have Rena on the podcast. She is the CEO of Trust Machines. Before we get too deep into what is Trust Machines, let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell us about your come to crypto moment and how you got here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. My come to crypto started off on an oil rig, like in the middle of the Gulf, almost 12 years ago. I'm a petroleum engineer by degree and background. I was working for an oil company, and I literally learned about Bitcoin by someone telling me, hey, have you heard about magical internet money? Apparently the oil we use is being built for it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, physical commodities, I get this. Like, we literally are creating oil that powers energy to charge your phones, drive your cars, whatever it may be. And when I learned about Bitcoin, kind of the hash power, the compute, the systems in place to create something from scratch via code, it kind of clicked for me. The world is going through its own industrial revolution, kind of in a digital format of no longer will things be physically backed by assets, but physically backed by code. And that's what really made the switch for me, to the point that I started mining Bitcoin literally from the Gulf of Mexico.
I mean, I would like to say that my Bitcoin story started the exact same, but quite different. I have to say you're one of the most unique origin stories that I've heard. So let's talk a little bit about then Trust Machines. Like, how did you get to Trust Machines? What's the mission?
Yeah, so I joined Trust Machines about 2.5 years ago, give or take. I just left my job at Binance US. I was the head of exchange at Binance US for a number of years, kind of growing American markets from an exchange perspective, new products, liquidity, and such. And I had always felt like the story was untold with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the first asset that brought us into crypto, Web3, on-chain, whatever your word is for it at this point. And all we did was hold it, and then we just ignored it as an asset. We ignored it as a movement or chain. And I fundamentally thought that there was value or an economy to create by having Bitcoin-based products. Like, what my kind of value prop was, hey, I don't use my Bitcoin because I don't know how to use it. So what happened if you created products and apps and DApps and an entire economy about using the chain and using Bitcoin? And so that's kind of what drawn me to team up with Manib. Manib had been building Bitcoin-backed things for a number of years and thinking through Bitcoin L2s and things like that. And he was really one of the only OGs that I met who wanted to add utility to Bitcoin. And so we've been teamed up, really enjoying the mission of building Bitcoin products.
Wow, it's very exciting. So let's talk a little bit about some of the products you guys are building and how some of your experiences at Binance are kind of informing that.
So our flagship product is Leather Wallet. So we have a Web3 wallet for Bitcoin. We support Bitcoin and Stacks, one of the premier Bitcoin L2s, and then all of the meta protocols like Runes and Ordinals and BRC20s. What I love about like Leather and the wallet that we're owning, operating, and building is that ultimately I don't see us as a wallet. I actually think Bitcoin is almost like a lifestyle brand. So Leather, in that sense, is going to be your lifestyle into Bitcoin. So what I see for the future of Leather is an integrated Bitcoin DApp store. If I want to do anything with my Bitcoin, whether it's lend it in DeFi, take out a loan against it, make an art piece via Ordinal, use it to secure my identity as a domain name, all of that should be done from like your gateway app into Bitcoin. And that's really where I view Leather as our wallet, kind of operating in that space. I think it's like a very narrow set mindset to just think of yourself as a wallet of like, use us to hold your keys and that's it. When the real utility is building consumer kind of interactions or on-chain interactions to to find something else to do with like your on-chain persona via Bitcoin. On the complete opposite side of like consumer, we do incubate DeFi protocols. It's kind of a key interest of if you believe that Bitcoin is money, not just a store of value, but you need to be able to deploy your money. And so we have a stealth protocol that we're incubating to release probably in the next 2-3 months on a liquidity protocol in Bitcoin. So be able to use your Bitcoin as collateral on chain to take out loans against.
Ah, very cool. So is it similar to what our friends at Liquidity are building?
Similar, I would say, but I would say if BlockFi was on chain, probably a better way to put it of can I take out something against my Bitcoin?
Got it. So let's talk a little bit about this wallet. So let's say people are unfamiliar with the wallet. What could they do? Let's talk about the I call it the life of a transaction. Like I put my Bitcoin in the wallet, then what can I do with it?
Well, in our wallet, you can do like a number of different things, more and more coming every day. But right now, you can swap your Bitcoin. If you want to swap into a different asset, it is a native experience in the wallet. You don't have to leave to connect your wallet somewhere else or go to another pop-up. Like it's all within the wallet. We are kind of working on like an ordinals kind of like gallery experience. So like the feeling of your art collection is with you. I think it's a pretty integral part of your on-chain persona. It's almost like your badge of honor for the PFPs and the creators that you support. And so Leather is really putting that kind of first and foremost in the experience for our users. And then on the L2 side, because we are integrated with Stacks, the Bitcoin L2, we have the staking or stacking in the Stacks ecosystem options where you can lock your stacks to secure the network of the Bitcoin L2 and actually earn a Bitcoin yield. It's one of the coolest mechanisms I've seen because in most staking protocols, you lock the asset to get your native asset, or in this case, you actually lock the L2 asset to earn L1 asset, which is Bitcoin. I don't think there's really any other protocol that you earn Bitcoin.
Got it. And then if people are really interested in Bitcoin L2s, they can look at the live stream we just did with Charlie today from BitLayer. But tell us a little bit about like why does Bitcoin need an L2? Like if they haven't seen that episode.
I think we're at this stage where for the longest time, no one was doing Bitcoin activities. So like if you go like from the last 10 years, Bitcoin was in a dark ages of innovation and such. And so only now in the last like 18 months have we had like an explosion of L1 transactions via ordinals, runes, BRC20. We're now kind of exposing the cracks per se in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is built deceptively and beautifully simple. But if you want to start accessing some of those more creative elements where you need very expressive smart contracts, the system just wasn't built for it. It doesn't have smart contracts. You're still running the same Bitcoin core that you did in 2011 and such. But what I love about like the L2 movement is you get to harness the best parts about Bitcoin, the immutability, the decentralization, the liquidity of the network capital, and like basically build on top of it without like ossifying or changing the base layer. And when you think about an L2, all it needs to be is cheaper, faster, better. All it needs to be is a cheaper, faster, better way for me to use my Bitcoin, but still have the benefits of Bitcoin architecture, proof of work, and kind of that historic legacy that is preserved with Bitcoin.
So we've got the very secure, main chain for the Bitcoin chain. Then we've got these L2s. Talk to us a little bit about some of the opportunities that are going to be opened by like, BTC Fi or these L2s. You guys have your own, what was it called? An incubator for some of the projects. So tell us a little bit about that and kind of where you see the future going for Bitcoin.
I think there's like two camps of the future. One is staunchly in the Bitcoin is money, so let Bitcoin be used in DeFi kind of future kind of mindset. That one to me is like the most bullish or optimistic case because you have, if you believe that it was sound money, you can build really structured or really incredible financial products that can be actually accessible to the entire world. Like we're still in 2024 where not everyone can get access to money, but Bitcoin is money. So like you have that world kind of denomination access like built in. Where I also see kind of the financialization of Bitcoin is we're kind of entering this era of every country has to have a Bitcoin strategy. And so I think kind of honing in on the downstream products that come from that would be key. On the complete other side of like, okay, Bitcoin is not money, but Bitcoin is creative, Bitcoin is a lifestyle, Bitcoin is like where you are. Where I'm like kind of optimistic or like curious to see is using Bitcoin kind of in the lens of AI. We're entering this like creator content era where everything can be generated by AI. So you don't know what's human created versus AI generated. And I feel like there's something there on using maybe a Bitcoin L2 to kind of like secure or kind of promote what was human generated or human verifiable generated. I think there's something there of like using like an identity for provenance.
Absolutely. And
But I feel like also everyone's a little bit scared to put some of the AI stuff on chain, maybe.
which is it's quite interesting because I feel like AI on chain is we've interviewed many decentralized AI companies, and it just seems like a hard problem. I guess every problem in this space, like building on Bitcoin, is another problem that our guests have talked a lot about. Is that it's just a lot more difficult because there's more rudimentary scripting languages. There's not really native smart contracts. So talk a little bit about that as well, like overcoming the difficulties inherent to building on Bitcoin.
That's such a great question. And I think that's like the key blocker of anyone getting into Bitcoin because when you build in EVM or Solana, you have super robust tooling and like infrastructure already built. Whereas on Bitcoin land, we are literally at ground zero every single day right now. Where I think there has been like a lot of hope and promise, there's a couple, two different areas. On the L1 side, I think there has been, let's say, community proposals that makes building on Bitcoin easier. One is OPCAT or OPCAT, whichever pronunciation you prefer, but it's a series of commands that are automatically usable in Bitcoin to deploy to make the hurdle to building a lot simpler. I think it's a great suggestion. I don't really actually have any drawdown of what it could unlock because I think the biggest thing that people kind of look at OpCat as a detractor is they don't know what they don't know. So it's kind of like viewed as like taproot assets. Once you integrate it, once you implement it, you don't know what further complexity is going to come downstream. But I still think there's um, a lot of benefits that outweigh kind of the risk of it's too hard, so don't do it. On the L2 side, what's been super cool to see is that a lot of L2s have their own language. Stacks in particular has Clarity, but developers or core engineers are really looking at adopting different runtimes into different languages. So imagine if you're a Rust developer, I can still deploy on Stacks, but code in Rust, or I can code in Solidity, but still have the harness of the security of the chain by giving the comfort of like your execution language. I think that interoperability will be critical if we actually want to see more products and DApps built.
And that would be what, similar to like transpiling or maybe WebAssembly. Talk to us a little bit about are there SDKs that are coming out that facilitate that, or is that like a future state?
I think it's a future state. I'm only familiar with the ones that Stacks is kind of embarking on. I think the WASM workstream is one that kind of brings the Cosmos ecosystem to build in their kind of native form to deploy on Stacks. I think Rust would probably be the next kind of fast follow, given so many developers know Rust. Like I think it's kind of funny to think about when you're a Web2 developer, all these blockchain languages are a foreign concept, but simple things like Python, C++, Rust, Java is like all standard languages. And so if we actually want an on-chain economy to grow, you have to meet developers where they are, which is not necessarily in like blockchain native language.
Yeah, I'll actually take the counter on this one because at Google, I used to be a Google engineer. They used to always hire people based purely on their intelligence level, and then they'd say like, they're a smart person. Like if we stick them on a Java project, they'll learn Java. If they're a smart person, they'll learn Go if they need to learn Go. So, but I agree, it makes it easier if people do.
It's like you'll learn it if you have an incentive interest to want to learn it. But I think an incentive interest to learn 15 different on-chain languages is quite
Fair.
challenging, but you could maybe make it simpler to like gravitate towards like 5.
Yeah, we just did. yeah, if I can identify a few, I guess you mentioned Clarity. There's Move, which came out of the Facebook Lever project.
Yeah.
There's of course Rust. There's Solidity. Yeah, there's quite a few floating around there. I'm sure there's a bunch of bespoke languages.
I remember, like, what was it? Some months ago, like, even Algorand moved back to Python and like got rid of their native language too, just to make their chain more viable so that builders could come in. So I think if you kind of have a bespoke language and you're not thinking about like an interoperable runtime, I think you're sort of screwed. And then I think one of the other kind of bigger, broader challenges, at least on like, let's say you want to do core development on the L1, there's no centralized standard in Bitcoin. Like everyone who's doing BRC20s or runes has to build their own off-chain indexers because we as an ecosystem just cannot get it together on going towards like a fungible and non-fungible standard.
Absolutely. And I think, do you think that's one of the biggest problems with the, I'll call it like build on Bitcoin narrative, is that it's just tough to get developers because there's a big learning curve.
I completely agree with you. I think it's such a challenge, which is actually why L2s on Bitcoin have a little bit more promise per se, because at least every L2 will create a fungible and non-fungible standard and kind of like build the relayers and indexers and kind of infrastructure around it. Whereas on Bitcoin, you don't have that much to work with in the first place. You have like a core ledger that you're working with, and you have a set of node operators and miners kind of securing consensus, but that is it. So like it is held together by a thread, but it's not the tightest of threads.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like the future of Bitcoin will be this like unlock it for DeFi, Bitcoin as a platform versus being like a means of exchanging value? It's quite curious because like historically, Bitcoin was thought of as the digital gold. You had probably like a lot of maxis that are like every other coin that exists is fake news. So it's quite interesting. It probably is viewed a bit heretically.
Yeah. So like I don't remember if you remember, but like in 2013, all people thought about is, man, Bitcoin is sound money. I'm going to use it for every transaction I have in the world. Let me buy coffee. Let me buy pizza. Let me do all of these things with my Bitcoin. And then I think as like the market kind of cycles lived on, people like, maybe it's more than money. Maybe it is maybe an asset that I store value and I hold. So then you got those digital gold narratives kind of coming back. And now we're in this era of Bitcoin is a little bit more amorphous. It's a bit more of a chameleon. You can use it for a medium exchange. You can use it for as money and such, but you also could kind of view it in a different lens of what it is good for is high value settlement. Like that is what Bitcoin and Bitcoin network is good for. I have confidence of if I want to send $1 billion back and forth, I'm only going to do it on Bitcoin. I'm not going to do any other blockchain network for that. And so I think it kind of creates like a contradictory standpoint of there are camps of people who want to do more with their Bitcoin and have that creator kind of space and energy affiliated with it. I think the Ordinals camp is probably a good example, but there will always be the staunch other side of use it as a reserve and nothing more. I'm probably somewhere in the middle of, I think you can do experiments and like interesting products on L2s, but when I want something that attracts big money, I'm only going to do it on an L1.
Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about the wallet again, because I'm interested in I think you guys might be the first wallet creator. I think we've had a few others, but the first one specifically in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to build a wallet, like what kind of technology you guys are using, why you decided to build a wallet, or why the team decided to build a wallet.
Yeah, being a wallet builder or operator is not necessarily for the faint of heart. I'll just say that, especially operating a non-custodial wallet. So a lot of the onus is on the user to secure their keys and such, because that's how Bitcoin was meant to be, not your keys, not your coin. But I think what has been our kind of premier advantage as a Bitcoin wallet is we build 100% in open source. Actually, everything is on GitHub public. There's no private repos, so you actually can see when we're merging and kind of putting new features in, which has built a lot of trust especially in the Bitcoin world, because Bitcoin was always meant to be open source and decentralized. And so that's kind of what I love about how we operate our wallet. We obviously are the core team building Leather, but other contributors can come into our wallet too, because that was like the ethos of how Bitcoin was built. What I think are some of the challenges is just maintaining tech stacks across the board. Every wallet has to have browser extension, mobile, desktop, and like maintaining. I mean, you're a Google engineer, so you would know. Maintaining all those tech environments is challenging, and having a kind of monolithic repo that serves all UI libraries has been an uplift for us.
Now, are you guys using something like Flutter where you're kind of write once, build anywhere, or like at least maybe for mobile? Because yeah, then you're managing Android, you're also managing iOS. Yeah, there's a lot of different surface areas. So talk to us a little bit how you guys are working on that.
Yeah, so on the mobile side, we were building like a more React native, so it will deploy both on iOS and Android in one go. So that's a blessing, but it has been tough. When we actually started off as a wallet, we started off as desktop and then launched browser extension. And so we've had to do quite a bit of, let's say, code legacy re-architecture to bring our libraries in a place that we can build once and deploy across all. We are now in that place that we're in that kind of that rail structure. But anybody who's shipped code before realizes like what the significant challenge, especially when you're an engineering team under 10. Like we're only a few engineers, a few designers, and a few growth people. That's it.
That's wild. So let's talk a little bit about, incubation, because our goal with the podcast is to document startup stories and promote people building on chain or Web3 or in crypto, whatever term people want to use. So talk to us a little bit about like the incubator and like what kind of companies you guys look for, or what kind of things do you think need to be built in this space. So if we have any builders here that they can hop on it.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of areas that people can go. One that I actually think is like a challenge for Bitcoiners right now, like a really amazing like DEX interface, like kind of going back to we're all in our own like off-chain indexer standards, so it's hard to have like an aggregated DEX or like the equivalent of 1inch for Bitcoin does not exist. So where can I get my runes, BRC20s, and ordinals kind of in one seamless place kind of stands out to me. Um, I also would love to actually see better payment gateways. And I feel like kind of an asshole for saying this because we have Lightning, but Lightning has not been scalable in the sense that people were able to use it at mass scale for like 10,000, 100,000 transactions. And so I feel like there's something missing in the mark of Bitcoin-based payments and actually Bitcoin-secured stablecoins. We don't really have those. And then the pure degen in me wants to see the like Pendle or like CDP of Bitcoin. Like that's
Yeah.
totally what I want to see.
Pendle friends of the pod, so they were on here. I would say Pendle's episode was one of the ones I had to prepare for the most because I'm not as like real deep into the DeFi ecosystem, and it's like you really have to thoroughly understand interest rate swaps in order to talk with them for sure.
I think it's a fascinating market, especially with like the carry trade that wrecked Japan, that wrecked our entire industry for a few days. Like there's something that maybe we're fundamentally missing that, hey, I think we all have to go through like our economics 101 over again by working in this space. And then even like thinking about like other kind of interesting things. I love what Athena has done in Ethereum world. I love that they've created that like yield bearing asset that continues to grow and still ultimately supports Ethereum. I think there are some teams kind of starting that in Bitcoin, but I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the milestones and things that they can look for from trust machines and just community can look forward to from you guys.
Yeah, so for kind of milestones or upcoming, Leather is going to mobile. I'm getting ready for our mobile release. That will be a big unlock for us because now your Bitcoin is on the go where you are. So kind of being able to onboard people into ordinals just on the fly, kind of a huge unlock for us. Kind of the next thing on the Leather side that will be milestone number 2, account abstraction. Not everyone wants to deal with private keys. So can we do a a digital native of what a YubiKey or a passkey or an OAuth is for people to actually get to Bitcoin. That would, I think, is like a huge unlock. Like, I need to be able to onboard my mom in one go without her thinking this is a daunting process. Because one thing I think builders are kind of take for granted is that most of us are Web3 natives, so we only look at our tiny, tiny market of like 100 million addresses in crypto. But the world is 8 billion, and we're not building towards that, and that's where we need to be running towards. Kind of on the other milestone side is we are launching a TLD on September 25th. So a top level domain, it's called .locker. So you could have, or I could have Rena.locker build a website, do everything I want on this landing page, whatever I want, but it also doubles as my Bitcoin address or Bitcoin identity too. So it's all interconnected and actually supported by ICANN. So in theory, I could launch a Hello Rena blog. I could monetize my blog with Bitcoin, and then I can build a decentralized blog all under the same TLD to live on like IPFS. But you have every aspect of the online and physical world connected under one.
Very exciting. Now, where can people go online to learn more about Trust Machines, everything you guys have coming up?
Actually, our X handle is probably the best. We're Trust Machines at Trust Machines CO, or our website trustmachines.co. We have really awesome education content for whether you're new in Bitcoin or you're kind of advanced in Bitcoin. My favorite thing on our website is actually our timeline series blog. We have a living history of everything that's happened on Bitcoin since inception until now. And then on the leather side, it's leather.io.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all those links in the description. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and all the builders. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Let's get involved with Trust Machines and continue building the future of Web3.
Thank you so much.